Good morning and afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the National Housing Resource Center Leaders in Housing Counseling call. Today's topic is middle neighborhoods. What are they and why do they matter? Before we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping items. A copy of the presentation is located in the handout section of the toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. If you need a copy of that, you can download it from there. Also, if you have any questions, please add them to the question box, also on the right-hand side of your screen. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, make sure you get them in and we'll do our best to answer them all. I'll turn over the rest of the portion of this webinar over to Bruce Dorpalin. Bruce, take it away.
Thank you, Ebony. Really appreciate everybody being on the call today. So our plan today is to walk through a little bit about updates of what's happening in the NHRC world and the rest of us. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Build Back Better Act. A lot going on there. We're a little worried about how it'll impact our work. We'll talk about that. A quick thing on Section 8 home ownership vouchers moving forward. And first-time homebuyers and competition from cash buyers. The brief is out. And then Ellie's going to talk about the Federal Advisory Committee, the Housing Counseling Federal Advisory Committee. We're interested in figuring out who would be good people to nominate, and she'll talk a little bit about what we're trying to figure out here. It's definitely a useful process, and we think this will be a reinvigorated committee, so very helpful there. So let's and what am I saying? The big important part is what we're doing here is we're having a session on middle neighborhoods, this excellent and valuable work being done by many groups, and the lead I think is NeighborWorks America and NCST, the National Community Stabilization Trust, but many groups really contributing to valuable work, and I think we'll talk a lot about how that means and how it might affect our work. The things that you should be aware of as housing counselors and how this could really shape home ownership patterns and neighborhood stability. So, and we expect this call to go at least an hour and a half, might be a little bit longer, and there'll be room for your questions and comments. And comments actually would be helpful in all this as well. It doesn't need to be questions. I think this could be a vibrant conversation. There's lots of things going on in the middle neighborhoods world, so this won't be the only time that you'll be able to hear about it, but we hope that those that aren't familiar will be really connected to what we think is pretty important work. So with that, let's dive into the agenda. I think the first thing is that Build Back Better Act. So this is, of course, what was once $3.5 trillion proposal. There's been a lot of back and forth about making it smaller and how do you do that. And the big concern right now is, of course, we've done a lot of work on the down payment assistance, the first generation down payment assistance program, which will have a housing counseling component, but most importantly, really can target especially Black and brown home ownership opportunities for people who won't normally have as many opportunities, and really try to help bridge the gap in home ownership levels. So our program and the others that fit into it around home ownership and housing vouchers, all of these are actually quite at risk right now. The problem is how do you trim down the amount of money that is in the entire package? And there's basically two strategies. So one is that you shorten the period of time or the amount of money that's in each program, and so do a lot of programs but do them in a smaller way. And the other strategy, which is what appears to be kind of on the ascendancy among in the White House, is that you only do three big things, and that you be able to do them longer, so you build a constituency so people really understand and benefit from it. And then once somebody wants to not fund it next time around, there's a strong appeal to keeping it. So that's really what happened with Obamacare. Despite great deal of activity on the Republican side. They were never able to repeal it because there was too much constituency support for the increased health care coverage. And the three categories that they wanted to whittle it down to are climate change, health care, and child care. And that those get fully funded and the rest don't get funded, which means housing programs don't get funded, which means nothing extra for housing vouchers, and then nothing for down payment assistance and many other things, the home program, the Neighborhood Homes Improvement Act, a variety of lots of things that have lots of value to the work that we do. And so what are we doing? We just sent, well, we circulated the letter that we put out, the sign-on letter. Thank you everybody who jumped in on this. This has turned out to be quite valuable. Maxine Waters and her staff just sent a big thank you to us for having done this. And 152 organizations signed on, so lots of, more than half housing counseling agencies. Yay, good work. And we've been sending this. We sent this also we sent it to the House and Senate. This is Ebony's work. We sent it to the House and Senate. We sent a special note to Senators Manchin and Sinema, along with linking up some of the Arizona groups to Senator Sinema. And we just sent it to the White House yesterday and to Treasury this morning, trying to build some support. We're hearing from some of our allies that there's talk about doing a news conference. Chairwoman Maxine Waters has rallied 29 other Democrats to write a letter calling for funding for all of housing. So both the work in the home ownership, but also the rental and homeless funding. And pretty hard-hitting letter. You know, we will try to do other things. What could be valuable right now is if you are in a state that has a moderate Democrat, really reaching out and saying, we want full housing, we want housing funding. We're not going to get full, but get housing funding, and especially don't forget home ownership if we're going to be able to address the racial wealth gap. And on top of that, some of the components increase the supply of housing, and so that's important as well. So really worth it to do that for House and Senate members who are moderates, and certainly doesn't hurt to do it with everybody, but it's pretty much up to the Democrats and trying to get the moderates to maybe push up and have more money in the pot, but also to support the parts that we're doing. We'll keep you informed on this, but it's literally day by day, and we'll see where things land. You know, we put a lot of work into this. It's quite valuable, high impact, and we want to make sure we can see it through to the end. On Section 8 home ownership vouchers, we're putting together a reform package based on the input of many of you out there and other organizations as well. We do have a meeting with HUD coming up where we're going to be able to roll this out. We're just working on the dates, but it'll be later this month or the early November, and we're going to have very high up people. It's not going to be the secretary, but it'll be the people reporting directly to her. So we're getting a lot of attention there. And that's, I mean, I do think this is a very valuable tool in terms of really improving low-income home ownership in many of our communities. We have to make it work better, and that's what the goal is. And then first-time home buyers and the competition from cash buyers. Thanks to everybody's contribution on this. The brief is out. We've posted it on the listserv. It's getting broad circulation. We put it out to all the House and Senate members, Democratic and Republican. Ebony, again, is in charge of getting these all out. 800 some odd staffers got this week. We've been circulating it among advocates, and we're starting to have conversations. The first one will be with Senate Banking before in the next couple days. But we'll keep pushing on all of these issues. Again, we're trying to figure out what the best solutions are, so deep insights are really helpful right now. So check out the brief, and if you've got things to add, please let us know. The other big thing is on the Housing Counseling Federal Advisory Committee nominations. So Ellie, can you fill us in on that?
Sure thing. Thanks, Bruce. So the HUD has finally announced that they, a couple of weeks ago, they announced the 8 people who were going to be on the Federal Advisory Committee. And yesterday or the day before, they came out with a notice that they're looking for nominations to fill 4 more positions. And those positions will be people from the mortgage industry, real estate industry, consumers, and HUD-approved housing counseling agencies. We will be sending out to the listserv the information. If you didn't already get it from HUD, we will be sending out the information about where you can submit your nominations. But also, if you know of somebody that you think would be really great from one of these sectors, we'd love to hear about it. We will review your thoughts and your ideas. We typically send something to HUD letting them know who we think are good candidates for these positions. Unfortunately, the committee has been somewhat inactive. When Ben Carson took over, there was an active committee, and many of the people, myself included, kind of timed off, and they never really refilled the positions. So it was relatively inactive for the past 3.5 to 4 years. So look for that email from us, and please let us know. I mean, you know, we're looking for people in the mortgage industry, the real estate industry, and from consumers who are folks who are familiar with the housing counseling industry and are friends of housing counseling industry and can speak well and knowledgeably on the committee. So Bruce, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, I think that's exactly it. So we'll have a nomination slate, and we're glad already David Young has put his name in, so that's good on the housing counseling side. It's always a lot more complicated to have the other positions. So if you've got thoughts about who would represent well in real estate and mortgage industry, those kind of slots, consumer slots, that would be great. Good. With that note, we're going to switch over, and I'm going to hand it over to Ellie, but I guess I want to make a quick personal note just about why middle of the neighborhoods, why I thought that this would be important. And part of it is it deeply affects the work that we all are doing around the country. This is not just urban neighborhoods, it's also suburban, and I'm sure there's some presence in small towns. You know, probably some of you know, I was a community organizer for a good 12 years and worked in kind of low and moderate income neighborhoods and organized and door knocked and put together leadership teams and community stuff and all this stuff. And it really struck me that there were some neighborhoods that were just much more successful than others. And it doesn't mean they weren't under stress. They had crime levels, they had housing abandonment, there was lots of those kind of issues. But there's kind of where there's a larger home ownership presence and where it's been long term. And I mean, I really saw this especially profoundly in the Black communities that I worked in. And it really matters. And I think there's a video that's going to get posted that's part of all this. And they interview a woman from the Cleveland area who just talks about growing up, I think in the 60s and 70s, maybe a little bit later, actually probably a little bit later. And just the sense of being able to go down to the store when she was a kid, and somebody would stick their head out the window and say, where are you going? And I'm going down to the store. Can you pick me up some milk? Kids playing together, again, playing together in the park, in the recreation center, and these community things that happen where it's anniversaries and barbecues and things where people, an extended family, so your distant cousins are all there. I mean, all those things kind of pulled together for a deep community bond. And even though neighborhoods have challenges and people's lives have challenges, this matters. And having stability and the ability to nurture these kind of neighborhoods. And she talks about having a real sense of freedom and safety and comfort. And that I used to see this a lot, and I think it's really important work that and work that's not getting a lot of recognition, that it was until this not getting a lot of recognition. So this is very valuable. It fits into the work that we've been talking about increasing Black and brown home ownership and how to keep that going. But it's also, I think, a deeper sense of community and stability. So with that note, let me hand it over to Ellie, and we'll get going.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I just want to say I'm really excited about this presentation and planning for it. I came to understand and learn that I actually live in a middle neighborhood, and I will just tell you that I love my neighborhood. I know all of my neighbors. I'm close to grocery stores, to drugstores. I'm close to city services, close to downtown. It's a very diverse neighborhood, and but I do see some of the pressures that Bruce has been talking about. So this is really exciting about how we as housing counselors can really work to make the most out of these neighborhoods. And we've been doing a lot of talking around the problem with first-time home buyers being pushed out of the market by cash investors and private equity investors. And these neighborhoods are places where people can still find homes that are affordable. So without further ado, let me introduce Marcia Nedland, who is the principal with Fall Creek Consultants, who is our moderator and presenter for the rest of this session. So Marcia, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and thanks, Ebony and Bruce, for inviting us. I was warned that the closed captioning can be very fun and interesting at times. So I think it identified me as a Martian already. So I can tell this is going to be fun. I apologize to everybody. I can't get my webcam to hook up to this platform, so you'll just get my voice. I am a consultant. I have a consulting firm, Fall Creek Consultants. I've done a lot of work throughout my career on homeownership related stuff back before there was subprime lending. If anybody's old enough to remember that, I did a lot of work around creating loan pools with lenders to do second mortgages so that people were required to have less of a down payment but could avoid mortgage insurance and stuff like that. I worked a lot with the NeighborWorks network. I actually worked for NeighborWorks America for some time. And besides the whole homeownership world, I also spent a lot of time working on neighborhood strategies. That's really my love, is figuring out what that very complex organism is, the neighborhood, and the variables there, and figuring out how to help residents, sort of recognize and counteract national trends that may be working against them, some of which we'll talk about today, and how to, weather change in neighborhoods and turnovers of generations of residents in ways that, allow the neighborhood to remain healthy and continue to attract first-time home buyers to help them in their next iteration. So go ahead, you can go ahead and click. Just for our little part today, basically I'm going to do a little bit of Middle Neighborhoods 101. Then we're very lucky to have two practitioners with us. Denitra Bram is from Belair-Edison Neighborhoods Inc. in Baltimore. She is the executive director, but she used to run their homebuyer education and counseling program, and she also has real estate development experience. And she is going to talk to us about the many ways in which she is able to promote her middle neighborhood to home buyers without, steering them in a direction, but making sure that her neighborhood gets in front of them and is one of the things that they consider. Charlie Wesky is from NeighborWorks Lincoln, Nebraska. He's the director of real estate development, but he also teaches half of the homebuyer education classes. And he's going to talk about how in Lincoln there are special incentives to attract home buyers to middle neighborhoods there. And we'll have a little time for Q&A and hand it back to Ellie. We're not going to show this video today just to save time, but the link to it is in the chat. So if you want to copy out that link and take a look at it later, I encourage you to. This is the video that Bruce was speaking of, and it really has has several different speakers talking about what middle neighborhoods are, but the most heartwarming one is a neighborhood resident leader in Shaker Heights, Ohio, talking about her middle neighborhood, which she grew up in, and now she's inherited her home from her parents. So I'll give you the high points of what is a middle neighborhood. So, we tend not, I'm sure if I asked any of you on this call, to take a guess, you'd probably say, well, you probably mean 80 to 120% of area AMI. And that is a great guess, right? It's a blunt instrument to try to start to get at where the middle neighborhoods are in your community, but it's as good a place to start as any. But in fact, there are a lot more variables there. And honestly, the way that most of us most often feel is the right way to think about it is that middle neighborhoods are those places in your city or town that are not the most distressed neighborhoods in your community, and they're not the most healthy or high income neighborhoods. They're sort of sitting there in the middle and nobody pays a lot of attention to them. They may not be eligible for CDBG funding. They might just be, at least for certain Black groups or census tracts, they just might have an AMI that is a little bit out of sync with that. And so a lot of the work that happens in middle neighborhoods is funded by foundations, or we're starting to see some innovation around sales tax revenue that cities are doing, or bonds that are being issued, or just general revenue funds that cities use. And I do want to make sure it's understood right from the beginning that all of the work that the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative is advocating for, none of us are interested in taking a dime away from the work that's being done in more distressed neighborhoods. But we'll explain why we think that middle neighborhoods really need to have some attention paid to them, and they are still great places for home buyers to buy. So they tend to be constructed mostly of single family homes because they were usually built originally for families with children. In the Northeast and Midwest, certainly east of the Mississippi, I guess, they tended to be built in the years after World War, or right around between the two wars. In the Southwest, which I've been looking at lately through a research project, they tended to be in the decades right after World War II, but they were basically built for families with children. This is one of the reasons they're a little bit vulnerable right now, is that although I bet a lot of you have a fair chunk of your home buyer education and counseling clients are adults who have children in the home, that is a declining demographic nationally. So I bet you also have a lot more single people than maybe you did a couple of decades ago. And so the housing structures are not necessarily, they weren't designed and built for single people. So there's a bit of a mismatch. Usually these neighborhoods are well more than 50% owner occupied still. And of course that I think all of us can understand how there are advantages to living in a neighborhood like that. The neighbors tend to stay longer, you get to know them, they tend to have more of a sense of ownership of what goes on in the neighborhood and get involved in making sure that the day-to-day issues are resolved. The housing stock is older than suburban neighborhoods, although we do have a big contingent of first-ring suburbs in our community of practice. And it's still in good condition. The issue, I think, with it is that it may lack some easily addable features and updates that would compete well for today's home buyers. So I have no doubt that all of you talk with your your home buyers in training about what they're looking for in a home. In my career of talking to realtors and home buyers, more and more, one of the things we see is the issue of one bathroom homes not being attractive anymore to home buyers. So a lot of middle neighborhoods, you might see, you might find it common that there's only one bathroom, and that may be an obstacle for people, especially if they just dial into an online search mechanism for listings and, you know, stop it at 2 bathrooms. There's other little things like maybe some kitchen or bathroom updates. I think that these are things that can make the house more affordable to a first-time home buyer, and are things that they can do some elbow grease to update themselves and really make it their own, and will add value to the home that, you know, translates to home equity for them. As we've said, the prices are usually quite affordable to a first-time home buyer. Now, I would, you know, caveat that with take out the COVID years that we're experiencing right now, where so many markets have gone really nuts in terms of home prices for a whole variety of reasons that I know you guys talk about a lot. The advent of investors is really troubling, and I'm really excited that this network is taking that on and thinking it through. Here's one of the things that I love most about middle neighborhoods. They, it turns out, are more racially, ethnically, and economically diverse than either their lower income or higher income counterparts. So I guess it's kind of logical if you think about it. You know, there is more concentration of similar incomes in both the lower end and the higher end, but in the middle, there's a lot of diversity. And what we find is that we have a lot of our first-time home buyer households of color, they bought in these neighborhoods, and this is where they're trying to build the wealth for their family. And it's one of the core reasons why we care so much about making sure that these neighborhoods are able to weather the transition and remain relevant to the next generation of home buyers. So let's take a look at some, see what they look like. These represent 4 different middle neighborhoods in Des Moines, Iowa. In that case, their home values range from about $80,000 to $180,000. Depending on which neighborhood you're in. One of them is a college neighborhood. You know, one of them is a little bungalow neighborhood. So there can be a lot of different takes on what a middle neighborhood is. One of them is much more suburban looking, but go ahead, that's okay. Chicago, these photographs are from the Greater Chatham set of 4 neighborhoods. These are Black middle neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago, where we have actually the co-chair of our community practice is the executive director of the Greater Chatham Initiative that works there. These are beautiful homes, right? And they're really close to downtown Chicago, but because they're Black middle neighborhoods, they suffer from all of the racialized policies that impact them negatively, and their median sales prices, taking out the COVID years, are from $60,000 to $85,000 for these solid little brick bungalows. In Baltimore, and Denitra will be joining us in a second to talk about this very neighborhood that I have pictures of right here. The Belair-Edison neighborhood is a middle neighborhood. Also, I think Denitra will say a Black middle neighborhood. And the price ranges there run from about $75,000 to $150,000 for a quality townhome. Townhomes are a very common housing type there. If you find a detached home that's in really great shape, it's, you know, more up in the $325,000 range. And Cleveland, here's yet another example. These homes are in the Old Brooklyn neighborhood, which is a middle neighborhood. The other co-chair of our community practice runs the Old Brooklyn CDC. And these kind of 4 square homes run from about $80,000 to $140,000. So I think that Ellie might have a poll to put up for us. I'm curious if after this description and these images, if any of you think that you live in a middle neighborhood. So all you have to do is say yes, no, or maybe. How's it going there, Ellie? Do we have some responses?
We do. I'm sorry. It took me a little bit to get myself unmuted there. It looks like we are pretty much done with the answer. We have like a 74% vote rate, but 44% said yes, 38% said no, and 17% said maybe.
Okay, all right, that's very interesting. So for those of you who do live in a neighborhood, oh, there's our results right there, yeah. For those of you who think you do or might live in a middle neighborhood, why don't you chat? I think that's actually my next slide, Ellie. Put into the chat what you like about living in a middle neighborhood.
And to be clear, don't put that into the question box. Please put that into the chat box. Otherwise, our question box will get overwhelmed and we'll lose track of your questions. Thanks.
I'll type in an answer myself because I definitely live in a middle neighborhood. I'm in Tucson, Arizona right now, by the way. And in classic middle neighborhood fashion, there are contractors downstairs making noise. I always have a project going. Oops, let's see, who am I talking to? That's interesting. For me, in my window, I'm only able to chat to organizers only, organizers and panelists only, or presenter only.
Yeah, sorry, GoToWebinar is a little restrictive on what panelists can do.
Oh, okay. So
but
everybody
I will say that what Marcia has written is that she likes her great neighbors.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not going to be able to see what everyone else is doing. So why don't you, Ellie, if people are typing into the chat what they like about their neighborhood, just tell us a few of the highlights of things that you're seeing there.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that I put in I love the diversity and that I can count on my neighbors.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things I noticed about middle neighborhoods is that they were pretty much built in to be walkable and walkable in a way that new experimental communities built out in the cornfields are trying to emulate. So they're walkable and they have retail around.
So it looks like these are, even though I think even though people are trying to put it into the chat box, it's going into the question box. So one person wrote prices since in the past 2 years in Chicago for middle neighborhoods are skyrocketing and cash buyers are swooping in and purchasing. What can be done to make non-investor cash buyers more competitive? Oh, I'm sorry. So that's more of a question.
That is a question.
This person said convenience of stores, transportation, and the diversity of my neighbors.
Yeah.
Somebody else said proximity to services like grocery stores and restaurants. There's another person said there's some revitalization going on in the community and everyone knows their neighbors and there's more diversity as well. I love the diversity of the neighborhood, the proximity to transit services and more, but unfortunately we've lost our affordability in the last years. Homes in our neighborhood have almost doubled in price in the last 3 to 4 years. The same thing's been happening in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
In the past year, the prices have gone up quite significantly. Oh, I see. Somebody is telling me that their box does not distinguish between chat and question.
Ah, okay, that's an interesting thing. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
go ahead and move.
Community, oh, somebody said more community gardening, diversity, diversity in age, race, habitability, familial status. This is in Grand Rapids, and this person is saying prices have gone up as well.
Yeah, I know, well, this will be something, you guys are all fortunate to have access to Bruce and Ellie and Ebony working on these, really watching these kind of big trend issues. I would hate to think that prices are going to drop significantly after COVID, because that would create its own host of problems. But at the same time, I can't imagine, in fact, I think some of the competition is already moderated slightly over what it was, say, a year ago. So I think we're going to have to wait and see how the dust settles. It's just really going to be interesting. As I said, it could be devastating in its own way if houses lose a lot of value, but I think the market has to, sort of self-correct after a while. Okay, anyway, so let me tell you about the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative. It is a national initiative. It's only about 5 years old, and like 5 years ago, it was only 20 people sitting around talking to each other. So we are really in a growth stage and really doing a lot of education and recruitment and, just trying to find all the other people who care about this topic. So we kind of have two parts. And the whole thing is, in terms of institutional homes, as Bruce mentioned, is a collaboration between NCST, the National Community Stabilization Trust, and NeighborWorks America. So NCST sort of is the home for the National Steering Committee, and that's got a mix of researchers, practitioners, and policymakers on it. They sort of take care of the policy analysis, the big national communications and advocacy. NCST participates probably on a lot of the same kind of committees that Bruce is on in DC, thinking about, what's happening and trying to shape that. They tend to take the lead on the research angle. And then the other big part of the picture is the community of practice, which I do a lot more work on. It facilitates peer-to-peer learning among middle neighborhood practitioners. And right now I keep forgetting to update this slide, or I update it some places and not others, but we have a lot more than 300 people in the community of practice now. I think it's more like 800. We've been growing a lot over the last year. So it's nonprofit staff, neighborhood association folks, city officials are our primary groups of practitioners. But then we have lots of other people who are interested in other ways, intermediaries, organizations like this. The community practice is staffed by a small team of organizers, and I am one of those. And my partner, Ann DePetta, is also on this webinar today with us. Ann, by the way, is HUD certified housing counselor, and she teaches classes at the NeighborWorks Training Institute. Some of you may have been in her classes on training the trainer. So I definitely want to encourage everyone to join our community practice. All you have to do is go to middleneighborhoods.org, and at the bottom of any web page, you can see where you can sign up to be a member of the COP, and you'll get our newsletter, and you'll have a chance to join affinity groups of people like we're about to launch one on community engagement strategies. We have another one that's about to launch on Black middle neighborhoods, and you can start one of your own as well. Okay, so mostly I just wanted to talk today about how housing counselors can help buyers find the gems in middle neighborhoods. So I have a few points here. The first one is to include some middle neighborhood tips, which I'm about to go over, whenever you're talking in the module or the conversation about finding an affordable home. So let's talk about some of those tips. So to me, the benefits of middle neighborhoods to first-time home buyers are that they're, in the grand scheme of things, affordable, quality built homes. there may be opportunities that are not on the radar of cash investors. You know, like out west, for sure, we have big institutional investors like Blackstone that are buying up whole. Actually, they're buying anything they can get in sort of suburban subdivision style housing. They're also building subdivisions just so they can rent out these 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. So it's possible that you'll be able to find properties in these neighborhoods that are not on the radar of cash investors. There are great neighborhood bones. I talked about that a minute ago. There's lots of street trees, naturally walkable. They're often close to downtown, and the really, you know, the big time amenities that were built in the founding of cities, like the really big parks and institutional anchors that you just couldn't be that close to if you were out in a more suburban location. As we just discussed, they're usually more racially, ethnically diverse than any other neighborhoods in a city. And they may have experienced neighborhood associations that are really focused on adding value to the neighborhood, which can be a real benefit. So, you know, if I were advising or talking to potential home buyers about looking at homes in middle neighborhoods, I would tell them that they can probably expect to make some updates to the home to make it their dream home, adding half bath maybe. And in fact, if you want to really find all of the great deals in middle neighborhoods, you might need to expand your search and not limit it to 2 or more bathrooms. That's one way you can find the houses that nobody else is looking at. You may want to do some cosmetic improvements to kitchen and bathroom aesthetics, but as I said before, you can usually, your home buyers can usually add a lot of value to their home by doing these things themselves. I would advise these home buyers to learn about grants, loans, and technical assistance for home improvements that may be available to assist them in that effort. There are a lot of those things around in different communities. When weighing their options, I would invite them to factor in those unique advantages like proximity to downtown amenities, business districts, and walkability, and to perhaps consider contacting neighborhood associations in these neighborhoods or looking them up on Facebook and learning more from the neighbors what they like about living there. And finally, I know a lot of the neighborhood schools in these communities offer tours, and they're really willing to do that almost at the drop of a hat. So for households with kids, that could be a really great thing to make them, you know, give them deeper insight into the neighborhood. So my number 2 tip for housing counselors is, if you personally don't already know, try and figure out what are the grants, loans, and technical assistance programs for home improvement that could be available to your clients if they buy a home that they want to update. I would even consider making this into sort of a fact sheet that that's easy to access. It has all the links to all the providers that they might need. If you have 3 or more graduates, this is more of a post-purchase counseling thing. I would consider forming a post-purchase home improvement club of those home buyers that you've helped to buy, so that they can share tips about their home improvement, socialize about that. And I think it helps normalize the option of buying a home that needs some cosmetic updates. Invite middle neighborhood associations or nonprofits that are working in them to offer supplemental optional webinars about their neighborhoods. So, you know, not a requirement as part of your core curriculum, but I think it can be really useful. I think Denitra will talk about this too. You know, offer some add-on webinars where different neighborhoods get to promote themselves and talk about the homeownership opportunities there. And similarly, if within your organization you also have other departments that focus on housing development or neighborhood revitalization in specific places, invite those staff to do optional webinars on the neighborhoods they're working on, so that your first-time buyers can get an inside look at what's going on there. So finally, we're going to launch a Padlet. So in the chat, I believe, someone will repost the Padlet link, and I think Ellie's going to click on it as well. And hopefully most of you have done a Padlet, and you can, we're just going to invite you to start jotting down some ideas about other ways that housing counselors could help buyers find homes in middle neighborhoods.
Ebony, could you please put that that link to the Padlet into the chat box, so that there it is. And I'm going to go out of here so that as folks are answering those questions, this is very similar to Mentimeter, for those of you who have done Mentimeter before.
Ooh,
So
I didn't know about that.
we are going to, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of here to show the screen. Ah, there we go. Here we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so all you have to do is click on a plus sign and you can add an idea of your own. I think we're looking at this live, so. And you can add one to get us started. You're a housing counselor. Affordability is an asset for sure, yeah. And I'm actually curious if you have, maybe in the other ideas column, if any of you are already doing things that, get certain neighborhoods in front of your homebuyer education and counseling clients, I'd love to hear about them. Ooh, small dollar rehab loans and forgivable grants. Absolutely. This is one of the biggest obstacles, I think, in neighborhood revitalization and making neighborhoods in general sustainable. It's very hard to get a small rehab loan. That's interesting. We have a different, oh, maybe this is what Ellie's screen looks like. Oh, I love this, create a tools library, like a tool lending library. Family friendly houses, very good. Family friendly is one of my favorite phrases. I think it's a fantastic adjective to use. Okay, so, a community land trust person saying they provide affordability through the shared equity model. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic strategy. And especially in middle neighborhoods, I think that's terrific. Estate planning is one of my favorite things. We did a webinar. We'll see if Anne has an opportunity at some point before we end today to put a link to that webinar. We had 3 people who either were estate planning attorneys or spend all their time with estate planning attorneys who do creative sort of outreach mechanisms to help make sure that people have their estates planned in a way that allows their homes to be transferred to the next generation.
Let me just jump in on one quick thing on that. There is the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta is sponsoring a get-together on these kind of estate planning, successors in interest, financial literacy issues.
Nice.
Where funders are getting together. And we featured this a couple of weeks ago on one of our webinars. And I just got a note from them saying that they're not getting very many financial literacy proposals. So this is definitely our alley that we need to be dealing with. It's not for the entire United States, but it covers 22 states. They're bringing in a lot of diverse resources to this. And so keep an eye out. There'll be another email we'll probably push out at the beginning of next week, reminding people about this, and the deadline's the end of the month, but really planning and pulling together something now would be good, because it sounds like this is the gap that they're looking to fill.
Yeah, if you don't want to
Yeah.
wait for the email on that, you can go to our website and go to our media section and watch the recording from a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, everybody can keep putting up ideas, and Ellie, Ebony, and Bruce will make sure to turn that Padlet into a PDF file and send it out to everybody after this. But I think now that we are at a place where I'm going to switch over to Denitra and have her talk about what she's doing, which is so exciting, in the Belair-Edison neighborhood in Baltimore City.
Hello, everyone. So I am Denitra Braham. I'm the Executive Director for Belair-Edison Neighborhoods Incorporated. And it's a pleasure to be here to talk to you about our Black Middle neighborhood. Next. You can move on to the next slide. So basically what we're going to cover today is just Benny as an organization, how we fit in as a Black middle neighborhood, some of the challenges that we face, and how we're going to promote our middle neighborhood and how that looks, and what are some of the things that we're doing in order to get more homeowners to buy into Belair-Edison. Next. So I won't go into like all of my background because Marsha pretty much covered that. But as I said, I am the executive director, and I do have a background in real estate development, property management, and I am a licensed real estate agent. So next. So Benny's history. Benny has actually been around for 30 years now. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are a Healthy Neighborhoods and Main Street organization partner. And what we do is we work to foster a environment where stakeholders, business owners, and residents feel confident to spend their money, their time, and all their efforts in the neighborhood to better the neighborhood and to maximize the assets and facilitate community investment. Next. So Benny is a very large populated microcosm in Northeast Baltimore City. We have over 18,000 residents and about 7,000 homes. Our homes are row homes, they're town homes. We have some single family homes that are semi-detached and detached. We have a 375-acre green space called the Herring Run Park. We also have a golf course, and we have 5 schools that are enveloped in Belair-Edison. We are situated right off of Route 1, which is one of the most populous and heavily used roadways in Baltimore. And we also have an 8-block business district that we manage through Main Streets. So right now our home sales are on average about $127,000 on the low end to about $275,000 on the higher end. We average about 24 home sales a month. As of September 30th of this year, we have had 224 homes purchased in our neighborhood. Next. So the programs that Benny offers, again, as I said, Benny is a community-based nonprofit, and we have community organizing, homeownership counseling, market and asset promotion for the neighborhood, business, small business development, neighborhood marketing and outreach, and real estate acquisition. Our counseling work includes pre-purchase counseling, default counseling, post-purchase non-default counseling, financial coaching, refinance counseling, and budget and credit counseling. Belair-Edison as a middle neighborhood and some of the challenges that we face. So Belair-Edison is a neighborhood like many Black middle neighborhoods. We have a lot of the challenges of an urban center, but we also have a lot of the wonderful things that the middle neighborhoods present. Like many of you said in your comments, you can walk to like a really nice place to meet and greet with your neighbors. There's a lot of green space to do gardening, to do block projects. A lot of the neighbors have been here for 30 or more years, and they really love the neighborhood and what it offers. We do have some challenges, like public safety is a challenge. That's a challenge in every urban center in most major cities. And we, as a community organization, we work very hard to combat those problems and to meet with neighbors, with the community association, and with stakeholders to figure out how we can best minimize those issues and keep flourishing in Belair-Edison. During the height of the crisis, there were a lot of flipping practices that were going on during 2008, 2009 that drove down some of our housing prices. And so that actually was one of the reasons that Belair-Edison got into more of the real estate acquisition and what we call our tripod approach. Next. So I'll touch base more on the tripod approach as I go into what efforts we've used to combat some of those problems. So our tripod approach is actually a three-prong approach where what we do is we teach rapid equity. We tell people how to either get a 15-year mortgage. If they can't afford to do a 15-year mortgage, we tell them how they can purchase a home with a 30-year fixed mortgage, but they can pay additional payments every year so they can take that payment from a 30-year mortgage to roughly about 23 to 22 years, and how each time that they pay a principal payment, that this is going to reduce the amount that they owe more quickly. Another branch of our tripod method is if we know that a resident is going into foreclosure, if they have a Healthy Neighborhoods loan, we reach out to Healthy Neighborhoods, or they reach out to us. They let us know that that homeowner is having problems, and we go and we counsel that individual, that family, and let them know what their options are, how we can assist them. And if unfortunately there's no other opportunity but for them to transition, then we also help them with that transition process, and then we get that house back on the market for another low to moderate income family so that it can be put back on the market and bought in a reasonable amount of time, so it does not just sit there for years and years and years and cause blight on the community. And then the third part is repairs. So if we have a long-term tenant who has been in the community for years, they may need some work done on their property. What we do is we, through funding, we will provide a repair for their external. It could be a roof, fascia, windows, porch, steps, and we provide this one for the aesthetics of the community, but also for the homeowner, so that they can get those needed repairs they may not necessarily be able to afford. If they have some more extensive repairs, this is one of the reasons that we partner with Healthy Neighborhoods. Healthy Neighborhoods can provide them a rehab loan. So that way, if there are more extensive repairs that they need, this is a way for them to get that done. Some of the other things that we use to combat some of the problems, we have a boost incentive. So actually through Bernie, we have funds that's called the Benny Boost. And the Benny Boost is a $10,000 grant incentive. So if anyone who moves into the Belair-Edison neighborhood, it's not, censored by the income that they have, but just that they move into the neighborhood, that they're willing to stay in the neighborhood for 5 years or more, and then they will be able to get that $10,000. And after the 5 years of staying in the neighborhood, that that grant or that loan is forgiven. We also partner with responsible private investors so that we know who's working in the neighborhood when their houses are coming to market, to make sure that they know what the community is looking for, to add that extra bathroom. Like Marcia said earlier, traditionally in these homes, there's just one bathroom, but we know that when you have a family of 4 or 5, that's, almost insane just to have one bathroom and everybody's kind of waiting in line to use it. So we let the investors know, adding another bathroom, adding a finished basement to the property. These are the things that the community wants, they're looking for, and that way it adds added just addition to the home, where the family can come and have a good time in the basement if they want to use that as a family room. But then they also have another bathroom where it's not so many congestion for the home. The other thing that we do is we develop relationships with other nonprofits so that we know what they're doing, what the best practices are, and how we can collaborate. St. Ambrose is one of our longtime partners. They do a lot of the development in the Belair-Edison neighborhood, and we, talk to them about what we're looking for in terms of renovation. And we also offer an additional $2,000 incentive for anybody who buys one of their homes, so that we can promote that camaraderie and get more homeowners into the home, and they are able to use these incentives to buy down some of the down payment, the closing costs, or even some of the points if need be. Other things, we also partner with Knee-High, which is now 4x4 area, and they have a land trust product that kind of catches some of those other residents who have been longtime renters and they can't seem to get their credit, to get a traditional type of loan, but this definitely helps them to be able to get another product where they can become a homeowner. And then, as I said, we partner with Healthy Neighborhoods for both their loan rehab product, but as well as just a rehab or renovation product. We also offer, as I said, with our tripod approach, a Benny repair loan that's given to anyone who meets the criteria in our neighborhood, who wants to get some additional work done on their home, and they are able to, get certain repairs done regardless of age, so that will bring, like I said, the aesthetics of the home, the neighborhood, bring in more people that want to live in the neighborhood, but it also helps that homeowner to be able to to build back that equity in that home and to have those needed repairs done. We also do things such as open houses, and during these open houses, if we have real estate partners, our development partners, our investment partners who have a home that's in the neighborhood, we market that home. We will have a walking tour, take people to the home. We do a counseling session in the home so that people can see what the house looks like. They can take a tour of it. So those are some of the things that we do to promote the homes in our area. We also do a premier realtor seminar. So we invite realtors that do a lot of business in our neighborhood to come out and see what Belair-Edison offers. It's a nonprofit, what houses are in the neighborhood, what houses may have been on the market for a while that are not getting promoted, and we give them a brief orientation, and then we will, each together market the neighborhood to new homeowners, potential homeowners. Other things that we do, we have a mortgage lenders orientation where we also invite mortgage lenders to know what we're doing as a neighborhood organization, what our real estate agents, premier real estate agents are doing, what houses are available, and we learn about what products they have that are available that can coincide with the incentives that we offer and the incentives that are offered by the city and the state. And so we make sure that all of those things are, given to our clients as they come in, so they can be fully educated about what the process is, how to best go about getting these incentives, using these incentives to really get the home that's going to best suit their family needs. And then we do things such as door hangers and postcards. We do community events. We actually just did several community events with the local schools. We go to the PTA meetings. We do back to school night, and we vend a table to let people know what Belair-Edison offers. We do an RML, which is our resident market leader training, where we meet with different residents that have been here for a really long time that want to be involved in the community. We let them know about new people that are moving in the community so they can welcome them. We send them welcome packages, and we connect them with our community development manager so that they can take them on a tour of the community if they haven't really had a chance to tour the community, to meet some of their neighbors. And so that way they can already have that sense of camaraderie and know that they have a whole unit that's behind them that want them to succeed in their home ownership. Next. So that's it for me. So thank you so much.
Wow, Denitra, every time I hear Denitra speak, I want to go be like an intern there, because they have every base covered. They're always thinking. They're doing an incredible service both for their homebuyer education and counseling clients and for the neighborhood, and they're able to do all those things simultaneously. I can't think of anyone better to talk about what it's like to work in a middle neighborhood. So I think it is Charlie up next. And Charlie, as I mentioned, is the Director of Real Estate Development at NeighborWorks Lincoln. So go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Marcia. Pleasure being here. Greetings from Lincoln, Nebraska, home of the cornfields that were mentioned earlier that people are building into. I am the Director of Real Estate Development with NeighborWorks Lincoln. I was initially hired as the Rehab Construction Manager as part of our homeownership program. I've been at NeighborWorks Lincoln for about 4 years, and we've seen some growth. We have a new director that's putting us into a more aggressive state, which is desperately needed. Lincoln is a growing city. We're at about 280,000 people right now. It's a primary refugee resettlement location. We have a very active investor market that's driven a lot by not only college housing, but the middle neighborhoods that we've been talking about are in Lincoln. That's ripe for investors turning properties into rentals, but also looking to flip and make a substantial profit. So we do work across all of Lincoln. I put this map up there for 2 reasons. One, to kind of show you the lay of the land in Lincoln. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Lincoln is about 40 miles to the west of Omaha. We're the second biggest city in Nebraska behind Omaha. University of Nebraska football team, the Huskers, are here. So Saturdays are an interesting experience. Lots and lots of red. But this map shows you kind of the layout of Lincoln. Our office for NeighborWorks Lincoln is right about on the 3 on the middle yellow circle where it says 69.3 years. We're centrally located. Listening to all of this talk of middle neighborhoods makes me think that Lincoln is the service area that we have is kind of one continuous middle neighborhood. We do at NeighborWorks Lincoln, from a real estate development perspective, we do focus on particular neighborhoods and areas. But like I've said, in our home ownership program, our clients are able to purchase anywhere throughout Lincoln, and I'll get into some of the incentives in just a minute. I do want to also talk about this map. This map represents my motivation. As you can see, it comes from the Lincoln Community Health Endowment. They do a publication called Place Matters, and one of the figures they look at is average life expectancy based on the census tract that a child is born and where they live. And as you can see, we have huge amounts of inequity. Inequity. In the center where NeighborWorks office is, you're looking just shy of 70 years of life expectancy. And as you go out to the newer developments, especially to the south, that grows to 89.1 years. So 20 years difference in life expectancy is not something that I'm okay with, or that NeighborWorks Lincoln is okay with, or the community as a whole. So we are centrally located. The Holly Malone is our home neighborhood. We've done substantial investment. On the first slide was a development we did of townhouses. So we've made substantial investment in that neighborhood. But like I said, our clients are able to purchase throughout all of Lincoln. So if you want to go to the next slide. A little bit about NeighborWorks Lincoln and what we do. We also have a 3-pronged tripod approach. We have a home ownership program, and that includes a 10-hour curriculum with HUD certified counseling with our HUD certified counselor. We have 4 classes that follow the Realizing the American Dream curriculum. Fortunate enough to teach 2 of those classes. Within that curriculum and that program, we serve upwards of 300 residents on an annual basis. Our statistics tell us that of those, 50% end up buying through the NeighborWorks program. The other half buy on their own, continue to rent, move to another community. We do all sorts of different options. But about 50% of those clients will historically buy with NeighborWorks, utilizing our down payment assistance program. The second prong, we have a very robust community building and engagement department. We have community builders that are continually looking to build neighborhood capacity, build leadership. They facilitate projects and events, and are really on pounding the pavement, getting out and meeting the people that live in our communities. The third line of business is our real estate development. From a new construction standpoint, historically, we've built anywhere from 8 to 12 units annually. This next year, we're looking at 14 to 16, so we're gearing up for what hopes to be a big productive year. We do run an acquisition rehab program where we acquire and do substantial rehab on 4 to 6 units per year. But then by far and away, the most touch that we have with residents is through our DPA with rehabilitation program, where we serve 50 to 80 families. They work with an agent after completing our home buyer training. They find a house and get a contract to purchase. And then I do an initial inspection to determine a rehab scope of work using housing standards. And that is anywhere we've experienced a little bit of a downturn in the number of contracts coming in. Cash buyers, investors have all been more on the receiving end of receiving those contracts than our clients have. No inspections has become a very popular tool. Escalation clauses, Lincoln, typically we say that Lincoln is a 2 to 3% per year market of increase in price. And in the last year, we've grown anywhere from 9 to 12% based on area. So the market is highly competitive right now. As a result, we see less clients utilizing our program, not because they're not out there, but just because they're not able to purchase a home. All of our new construction, though, we do put NeighborWorks clients that have completed our home buyer training into those units as well. If you want to move on, next slide. One of the key statistics that we like to hang our hat on, and you all being financial counselors understand the value of counseling and education. But through our home buyer training, we have a 0.06% foreclosure rate amongst our clients. We are extremely proud of that. I mean, that underscores the value of that program, that our clients are educated. They know what they're getting into. They know what they're looking for, and they just are they're ready to go when it comes to being homeowners. Want to skip ahead? All right, so in terms of our neighborhood reinvestment, I've mentioned that our applicants come to our program. They will complete a 10-hour education course, and that comes with counseling with our HUD certified counselor. Any person that completes the course becomes eligible for our program, and eligible clients will use a first mortgage with a local bank to purchase the home. We do come alongside with an assistance loan that covers up to $20,000 in assistance. That covers down payment, that covers closing costs, and then that also requires the rehab that I mentioned, and that's if they're buying an existing home. That assistance level through the city of Lincoln is $20,000. There's no interest, there's no payments. And if they buy in our focus area, and I'll have a map in just a second of that area, the assistance loan is forgiven, half forgiven over 10 years. The remainder, if they move after 10 years, would be due upon sale. That is the huge incentive to buy in our focus area, is that forgiveness attached to the down payment assistance and rehab loan. Like I said, clients can buy anywhere in the Lincoln city limits. If the home they purchase is not in our focus area, then the assistance loan, there's still no payments, no interest, but it would just be due upon sale in entirety. So again, the forgiveness is the incentive. And if take a look at this map, you can see the red represents what we call our neighborhood revitalization strategic area, or the NRSA. That is an area determined by the city of Lincoln in need of revitalization. The yellow shaded areas are low mod areas, and that encompasses all of the NRSA plus the additional areas that you see in yellow. So when I talk about these the clients purchasing homes in our focus area, if the home is in one of these two areas, the red or the yellow, then that is in compliance with our focus area, and they're eligible for $20,000 that's half forgiven over those 10 years. Substantial, it's not a small area. It's not like it's just one particular neighborhood. It's a pretty broad swath of Lincoln. Obviously, Lincoln being, we have homes in our core, close to our office that were built pre-1900, and then Lincoln has really radiated out in all directions in different levels. So obviously the newest construction is towards the periphery, where we see newer subdivisions. But the NRSA and the LMI is full of middle neighborhoods. I was thinking about what I enjoy most about middle neighborhoods, and it's just the authenticity that each neighborhood somehow takes on its own identity. I'm thinking of, even close to our office, we have an area it's a garden, an urban agricultural area where the neighbors all banded together and decided, instead of growing grass, we're going to grow food. So they created what's called the Holly Hamlet, and it's just that opportunity for authentic identity, and it just adds a depth to the neighborhood that newer subdivisions don't have yet. They could down the road, but when you look at middle neighborhoods, they definitely have that depth that I enjoy. Definitely in need of some reinvestment in some cases, but that's what we're here to do. So I did include some photos of homes that we've completed. No presentation would be complete without the happy homeowner on the front porch. And then kind of a variety, two on the left as you're looking at the screen, those are our homes that we've rehabbed. And then our newer construction is on the right, one that's actually in process right now, the one at the top. And then the bottom right picture represents our strategy with land acquisition becoming more difficult, trying to maintain affordability with higher land costs. We've really moved to a model where we're really trying to push how many units we can get on a single parcel. So those are three homes that are connected by party walls. There had been two homes there, so where there was two, now there's three, and that's a strategy that we're sold on. We're developing that in other parts of town as well. And I think I have one more slide Yeah, these are newer developments, larger scale developments. One is a row house concept just down the street from our office. And then some Antelope Square Village would be on the left, where you can see it's created its own micro community. They're townhouses that are adjoined at the garage, but it definitely creates intimate spaces where neighbors get to know each other, and it almost has become a community unto itself in that pocket. So that is what I have. So thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much, Charlie. That's so interesting. I just love all the different ways you're attacking this problem of affordability and trying to get the housing stock, the older housing stock, updated so that it's, you know, ready for the next generation of home buyers and owner occupants. So I think, Ellie, now we are going to do some Q&A. I guess I can't see any questions, but so maybe you can just read them to us if you can see them.
Absolutely. I'll read the questions to you. So the first question first let me just say thank you so much for everyone's presentation. I believe that we are now well informed on middle neighborhoods. So the first question that I have is, prices in Chicago in the past 2 years for middle neighborhoods are skyrocketing and cash buyers are swooping in and purchasing. What can be done to make non-investor cash buyers more competitive?
I'm going to defer to you know, our two practitioners. What are you guys doing about that issue? Because I know you both have it as well, Denitra and Charlie. I think Denitra's buying the houses herself. Can you unmute yourself, Denitra? Okay, well, what about you, Charlie? You have any?
I can speak to that. Yeah, I think it's definitely a problem that we're seeing in Lincoln as well. We might not have our prices haven't, I wouldn't say skyrocketed. I mean, if you talk to a Lincoln local or a Lincoln native, they would say they have, but on a national scene, we're still fairly affordable. But there has been a substantial jump over the last year. And one of we do see a lot of investor activity that does pressure, kind of push out NeighborWorks buyers, first-time home buyers. And it's difficult because cash investors, I mean, they're buying, I mean, obviously cash, no inspections. It's pretty quick, painless transition. As a NeighborWorks organization, we encourage get all the inspections, have all the people look at it, get the sewer checked out, have the whole house inspection. So that does create it's difficult. I would say from an organizational standpoint, one of the things we're right now looking at is the development of a community land trust that would we would be able to feed properties that we develop, that we rehab into that land trust, and having ownership of the land, we get to retain the sale rights in the future. So instead of building 3 homes that are affordable to the initial buyer, but then goes market rate after that, we're able to hold on to that affordability piece for the long term. And I think that's not a good answer for the person that's out there looking to buy a house that is struggling to compete with cash offers. But I think from a larger scale perspective, that's one of the answers, just to hopefully build up that land trust to where we have a solid core of properties that are sold there. And I every day I work with with agents that are trying to make offers as competitive as possible, and it's really a shame. I mean, investors we're never going to be able to beat. I had never seen, the first 2 years I was here, I'd never seen an escalation clause, and now they've popped up pretty consistently. So it is a new reality, and I think what I've seen is some of the investors that buy and then flip. There are some that are doing a phenomenal job, and they do quality work, and they're adding updates to housing stock that desperately needs it. Albeit it does take a home in Lincoln that maybe sells for 80,000, gets a full rehab, and then it sells for 150 or 160,000. So it does change the market. So we really are having a hard time getting clients in that $100,000 to $120,000 range into a home.
Charlie, I'm aware of a couple of nonprofits who are, they do more than just homebuyer education and counseling. So they have the capacity and resources, but they're actually starting to intervene and be the cash investor themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I think it's cautious times right now. So they're doing it in situations where they know they have a really good, solid home buyer, that says they want that property. They know the property themselves, and they know that they can do another closing within the same month, so they can avoid duplicating all the closing costs. So that's not something everybody can do. But I realize we don't have a lot of time left, but I know Bruce has been working on this issue a lot about how can we, about potential policy that would give a kind of a first look to neighborhood home buyers. Does everybody already know about that, Bruce? Or?
Well, actually, I was going to mention a couple things. So one of the things is we're very interested in trying to figure out how to deal with the private equity firms that have made a national model out of essentially buying single family, what would typically be starter homes, and flip them into rentals. And this is a growing phenomenon, and it's not like big everywhere, but it's certainly growing in a number of cities and some small towns and suburbs. It's a big thing in the suburbs as well. So that's one issue. We're trying to figure out, there's the Stop Wall Street Looting Act. There'll be a new version of that Elizabeth Warren is introducing in the next couple of weeks. I think it's actually fairly soon. And we'll take a look at that. That has some promise, and we're talking about other legislative solutions. I haven't found the perfect one yet. There's another interesting strategy, which I think speaks directly to the practitioners who are on the phone, where you've got a concentrated neighborhood of people who have an identity with the neighborhood. And that is getting the existing homeowners to think about only selling to owner occupants. And it does mean that they are walking away from some money, but it also means that they're letting people who could raise their children in their house and keep the community going the way it was. And HomeWise in Albuquerque has a very interesting model where they actually talk openly about this, but also have a team of real estate agents who only solicit owner-occupant offers. And it eliminates all these issues about, well, we don't take mortgages, or we don't take FHA loans, or we don't take down payment assistance, or we skip the inspections. You're only getting people who are being owner occupants who want to go through the drill and have a mortgage potential to buy the house, which is pretty interesting. And I think it speaks especially to neighborhoods where you really have a deep long-term bond in working with the community. We're still trying to figure this out. I think we have a lot more questions than we have answers in some way. There are some there's an interesting program in DC where affordable apartment buildings, legislatively, they've made it in DC so that there has to, you have to give a first offer ability to local nonprofits, or I think the tenants. That's an intriguing idea. I'm not sure how you convert that to single family housing. So we're trying to kick that idea around with other policymakers and practitioners. We're really open to trying to figure out more solutions to some of these problems. It's very interesting. The real estate community is very split on this, because some have a deep vested interest in cash buyers, and they are often the messenger, and they claim it's the seller who wants it, but in fact they're the ones who want it. But there are other real estate agents who are saying, wait a minute, oh, my buyers can't buy houses anymore because of your system, and we really want to have access here. This is outrageous. So there's a lot going on in this field, and we're trying to figure out some of the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad that you are trying to figure it out. And it's a tough one, and it came on us. It feels like it came on really fast, or I think it was building for a while, but in this last year and a half, it's accelerated. I know
Marcia,
it
could I
is.
add one more thing?
Please.
I just wanted to piggyback off what Bruce had mentioned. The idea of selling only to in our case, NeighborWorks Lincoln buyers. We do have one property that NeighborWorks Lincoln acquired that we're working on rehabbing it. There's a gal whose son is in a wheelchair, so we're not only rehabbing it but also making it accessible. So I think there's definitely potential, and I see agents that all the time are able to work their connections to make being part of NeighborWorks a benefit as opposed to an impediment. But I do think, I mean, going back to the acquisition rehab, to do that on any type of scale, I mean, it's a good story to do it one time, but how do you get to where you're doing it dozens of times where it has an impact citywide? That's where we're kind of what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, the scale issue is really a difficult one. I mean, it is, you know, in a bigger city like Baltimore, Denitra is able to have like at least two, and I think she actually works with more other nonprofit developers, so she doesn't have to have all the capacity in-house. One of them, that's all they, or there's a whole department that's all they do, and because she does such a great job at promoting and marketing their properties, they do a lot of their development in her neighborhood. And I think for a lot of housing counselor agencies, you know, that's probably the quickest, you know, starting to form relationships with organizations that do that kind of development would be a good first step. Ebony, do you want us to stop, or you don't want us to give us I think I'm certainly willing to stay and answer more questions if there are.
Yes, we can keep going. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And before I go on to the next question, I just wanted to let everyone know that I did add the link to the brief on prioritizing first-time home buyers in the chat section. So if you wanted to grab that to read later, you can absolutely do that.
Great.
The next question that I have is, how are projects like this supporting new construction and the addition of units in neighborhoods like these?
Yeah, well, some of them, you know, in terms of our whole community practice, some people do try to do like infill new construction where there are vacant lots, or they try to assemble, you know, some combination of parcels so that they can build a cluster of properties. But it sounds like that Charlie is really the one amongst us who's doing the most of that new construction.
Yeah, I think going back, I think a lot of times the authenticity and the maintaining core neighborhood aesthetics and values, that's great. but when it comes time, when you have an infill project, especially when you're trying to maximize land, there does tend to be a rub where the neighborhood wants a single family house that looks just like everyone else's. But from a practical standpoint, it makes more sense to build a duplex. And I think that's where, I mean, that's one of the challenges. And we're fortunate we have a CEO who's an architect, so we have some capacity in our staff. But that's one of the challenges, is how do you keep the neighborhood happy? How do you keep the rhythm of the street, but also maximize, so you're you're able to maintain affordability for the clientele that you're trying to serve. And NeighborWorks Lincoln, we do pretty much entirely infill. The larger developments were kind of a one-off. We wanted in that direction. But our projects have been infill, so there's a lot of that brings the community building department to the table to get input from neighbors and to build goodwill, to listen to their concerns, and then hopefully implement a plan that everyone is okay with.
You know, Anne is on here somewhere. Maybe she could unmute herself. I know that she does the homebuyer education and counseling for Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services in Ithaca, New York, which is a very, very hot market, and it has been for a while. And so they don't do they do a lot of housing development. Every single unit goes into their community land trust. They won't build anything that doesn't go into it now, as I understand it. And so in some ways, you know, some of their developments are mixes of rental and home ownership, but they're almost like building little mini middle neighborhoods by the time they find someone who can qualify for a mortgage and afford, you know, as far as they can get that price down. Do you want to say anything about that, Anne?
Well, you're right. That is what they're doing, although I don't have a lot of I don't work in that department. So mainly what I do, for INHS is I'm doing the homebuyer classes and that sort of thing. But I'm semi, aware of what they're doing. And that is a strategy that definitely, is really useful and valuable around here, is that land trust model. The prices of housing right now that INHS is selling in their land trust are $120,000 or $130,000. And for that same house that was not, in their portfolio, would be easily double that.
Absolutely. It's unheard of, those prices anymore in Ithaca.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it would be triple that even, maybe.
Yeah, it's possible.
So that's become really a big strategy, because there isn't, well, yeah, I know they're always looking for places to build. And there's not that much left in terms of infill. They can't find any places to build just single one-off homes like they used to do. And they're building higher density stuff too, which they also have, there's a lot of managing the relationship with the neighborhood in which they're building, because the neighborhoods usually don't like higher density housing, just like you were saying, Charlie, but they're pretty committed to it. What else do you have, Ebony?
Well, actually, we are out of time for the day.
Okay.
What we will do is submit the rest of the questions to our panelists. And if you guys can, via email, if you answer them, we'll send them out to everyone who was invited to the webinar today. So again, thank you all so much for your presentations. I'm going to turn it back over to Bruce. He's going to close us out for the day.
Okay, so, well, thank you, everybody. That was terrific. Really great stuff. And we'll continue to monitor this, and hopefully there'll be opportunities to address some more of this as we go along. Please join NHRC if you haven't already, and thanks to the many groups that have renewed. We really appreciate the fact that you're supporting housing counseling advocacy. That's where the money goes for. And it allows us to lobby and raise controversial issues sometimes. That's what we do. We like to be there. We like to be there on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge. That's our strength. You know, I'm going to move on quickly just to close us out. And I think the other thing to be aware of is that we will have our next session on the 28th. If there's an emergency, we will jump in. I keep hoping that there'll be one where we could start really talking about what the substance of the of a bill that passes in Congress on down payment assistance, but I'm not sure that we're going to see that anytime in the near term. So probably the next session will be on the 28th of October, and we're going to do it on co-ops and condos, and things to do with homeowners associations. But part of the motivation for this was after the collapse of the condominium building in Miami. I just heard on the radio somebody talking about, well, how do you know if your condo building is in good shape or not? And so we got that guy, and then we also got some people who really talk about this. So I know that a lot of you are familiar with condos and co-ops. What we were trying to do here is maybe push the envelope a little bit about what's useful to know, and trying to protect your home buyers, your condo and co-op buyers in a little bit different way, so that there's more information. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think we'll see where we go with it. We've got some good invited speakers in. So with that, I think it's we've had a good session. Thanks everybody for sticking with us, and have a great week, and we'll be in touch as things keep going, and keep an eye out for emails we're going to be putting out. There may be some quick action things to do on legislation, and there will be the board, the committee for the Housing Counseling Advisory Committee. We'll have things like that coming out. If you have some brainstorms about what to do about cash buyers, we are so interested. So shoot that to Ellie and to me. Thanks a lot. Okay, thanks everybody for all your good work. Bye.